Oh, we gotta hide that. All right. Hey there, everyone. I'm Sensei Mish. I have Josh Dumoulin in the chat with me today. He is a Taekwondo instructor, school owner in Alberta, Canada?
That's right, Lethbridge, Alberta.
Lethbridge, Alberta. Okay. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Josh, we were actually just chatting before we went live about how I dog on Taekwondo, and for you to not take any offense. What got you into the martial arts in general, and maybe even what kind of drew you to Taekwondo?
Well, I've been doing Taekwondo since I was 5 years old. So I started really young. My parents kind of, I think, just wanted me to be in a martial art. My dad had some boxing experience
Okay.
before Taekwondo, and I think he always wanted to get into martial arts outside of boxing, and we started in Taekwondo. My dad started training, and I just kind of started with him. And I mean, what 5-year-old doesn't love Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers? So kind of started from there, and I kept doing it over the years. I haven't I think maybe taken brief breaks here and there, but for the most part, I've been pretty active my entire life in Taekwondo.
Cool. You know, it's funny
So
you mentioned Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles. My I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to now be a grandfather. My eldest, who's 24, when we had him, it was one of those where I didn't want him to do any Barney. You know, I didn't want him to be associated with any Barney, Power Rangers, or something else. I can't remember what it was, but there were three things. Oh, Elmo, because I'm a huge Grover person. So no Elmo, no Elmo, no Barney, and no Power Rangers. And I don't know what it was, but he just absolutely fell in love with Power Rangers. So I was like, okay, well, it is martial arts based. It's kind of goofy, but you know what? I'll let it go. And so it was, you know, he was the Red Power Ranger forever, even as an adult. You know, he bought the helmet. But when it comes to martial arts, he studied for a couple years, and then he was like, nah, this isn't for me.
really?
Yeah.
See,
but he would go around. He'd go around, you know, when he was a kid, and even as a teenager, just goofing off. But you know, he'd be in his Red Power Ranger outfit, just go. It was pretty funny.
Well, kids love to dress up. I mean, I've got a 7-year-old, and yeah, same thing. Power Rangers. He loves that.
Yeah.
So.
And actually, it's funny because even when the Power Ranger movie came out a couple of years ago, we all went and saw it. And I asked him, of course, he saw it before me, but I said, you know, how would you think of the movie? Did it do any justice to the franchise? You know, what do you think? And he goes, oh, it was fabulous. He goes, I cried 3 times.
And cried 3 times during it?
Yeah. And so
did you ask him at what parts?
Oh no, I didn't ask him what parts, but I was watching the film, and there were these scenes where I was like, yep, this is where he cried. Because it's just those, you know, those typical power moments where it's just like it drums up some emotion and gives kind of a callback to the original. A
little nostalgia.
Like, okay, that's a tear moment. That's another tear moment. Yeah.
Takes you back to when you were a kid, but reliving it, and now is experiencing it all updated and
yeah.
So oh yeah.
So if you guys I see some people watching. If you are joining in, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. we're chatting Taekwondo and Power Rangers right now. So,
Ninja Turtles. Don't forget about
and Ninja Turtles. So I'm the generation where the Ninja Turtles came out when I was in high school, originally in the comic books, and it was all black and white cartoons, and in the comics. So I can't even remember who originally came out with it, but yeah, it was just one of those things. For some reason, I never really got into it. I'm more of a Star Trek fan, kind of Star Trek and Star Wars. Don't know if you kind of geek out that way, but
I've watched them. Honestly, though, I'm not. I couldn't really geek out with you on those ones. I don't know much about them. I've watched them all. My little guy, he does like some of the Star Wars too. We've been watching Mandalorian, so
right on,
which is an awesome series. But
oh, absolutely,
yeah.
TJ, I think TJ's from, I can't remember where he's out of. I think he's out of. Remind me, TJ, where you're from. I think it's Tennessee. He's like, Power Rangers are just cheesy live action of Voltron.
Could be true. Yeah, I don't. I never watched Voltron, but
no, I remember Voltron. That was I'm aging myself again, but they had all different variations of Voltron on that too. No, but when it for the I like the original Ninja Turtles movies. In fact, when I don't have a lot of students now, but when I had more students years ago, and I had a bunch of kids, we would do like movies during the summer, and so I'd bring them in, put in a projector, and we'd watch Ninja Turtles and other martial arts movies. So, but not the freaky Ninja Turtle movies that they have out now with all the CGI. This was the original, foam suits.
Yep. The ooze.
But and even in even when it came to the cartoons or even the comic books, even though I was kind of a comic book geek, I didn't really get into that either. But I found the getting back into the Star Trek thing. I found the four main turtles, all in, and I don't know how long ago this was, but it was in a toy store. They had all four of them in Starfleet uniforms, and so it was basically Star Trek meets Ninja Turtles, and so of course I bought all of them, and they're sitting in a box somewhere. But
you don't have them on display?
I don't have. Well, see, I married, lots of not lots of kids. I have 3 kids, but I never really had a man cave. Basically, my man cave is my dojo, which is my wife allowed me to have the garage as the dojo. So that's kind of my man cave. But I don't really have a lot of stuff up. The one thing I do have up that's Star Trek related is a poster to my Star Trek 2: The Wrath of Khan. That's my favorite movie. So
I always hear that about a lot of people who like Star Trek. For some reason, that one there is.
Yeah,
I hear that one mentioned a lot.
Well, it was well written, and it brought back somebody from the original series. Ricardo Montalban as Khan. You just can't, you just can't recreate that. Even though they tried to with Into Darkness and had Cumberbatch be Khan, but that was just a con job. I don't even consider that one of the Star Trek movies. That's kind of how geeky I
am. Yeah, I can't follow you. I haven't seen it. Ugh.
That's okay. When it comes to Into Darkness, don't. You can watch all the other ones, even Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which is probably one of the worst ones out there. But it's still a lot better than Into Darkness, in my opinion. So. All right, so TJ said he's just north of Nashville, so he's down in Tennessee. So So, okay, Alberta, where now, for those who are geographically illiterate, where would that be in location to the states?
Uh, I am north of Montana.
Okay,
So I'm actually only, our city in particular is only about an hour drive from the border of Montana and Alberta. So we're more on the west over here. So
okay.
where are you?
I'm in Vancouver, Washington. So I
Oh,
am
okay.
so I'm on the West Coast. I'd say I don't know, maybe a 6 hour drive from BC.
Mm, I'm from BC originally, so
Oh yeah,
yep,
cool. Yeah,
yep. But
I've never actually been. I can't say I've never. I've been into Canada, but it was I don't remember it. I was too young. My
mm,
step grandparents had they had a huge property in what is it called Eastman, Idaho. But and it was like you could throw a stone and hit the border. It's that close to the Canadian border. But and
oh,
so
okay.
we used to kind of go up and in and around and come down when we were traveling. But I was so young, I just don't remember it. I'd like to end up going though, you know.
Yeah, you should. If you like to hike or bike or do anything like that, there's lots of cool places up here
Yeah,
to go do that. So yeah,
right on.
beautiful country.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'd have to do it without my wife. She's not into that stuff.
Oh, that's okay too. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
We
So
always need a lone trip.
so your school, you were saying before we went live, you survived COVID, which was good.
Hmm.
How where you're at? How did COVID affect things? I mean, I'm assuming you were shut down like everybody else.
Yeah.
How did you guys make it through? What were some of the things that you did?
Well, oh, geez. So going back to last March, right when we originally shut down everything, like the world started stopping. I think it was like March 16th was the day we were forced to close. So our province um, issued just a mandatory everything's shut down. So we were locked right up. We immediately switched and pivoted to online training, which was a big adjustment for us. I mean, obviously, I'm not just speaking about Taekwondo. I mean, any martial art, we're built for in person,
Oh, absolutely.
like face to face training. That's just what the whole thing is built around. So we had to make that adjustment to the online world and try to deliver what we do in person to this now virtual experience and still maintain that. So there was definitely some rocky parts. We definitely made a lot of mistakes really early on, but we knew that we wanted to make sure we were going to come out on the other side of this and be able to still be around for everybody. So we did as much as we could to learn as quickly as we could how to teach online, and it was a struggle. But and up here in Canada, I know every state and country and province, uh, you know, has gone through different ups and downs. But we've been closed and open and closed and open and closed, and we've done a lot of back and forth up here. So we've been able to go back in person, and then we've been back online and back in person and back online. So it's been it's been a roller coaster for sure. We're starting to now see the light at the end of the tunnel, and again, we're open and so far still around, so that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, transitioning through it was a struggle. I mean, it was hard, but we knew that um, we enjoy teaching. We love to teach Taekwondo. We love to teach martial arts. We loved just being able to show and uh, be there for our students as much as we could, and we just knew that yeah, we're not built for online, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to do the best job we can at making sure we're still around here at the end. So yeah, it was definitely, like I said, a lot of mistakes in the beginning, trying
Yeah.
to transition from it, going from, well, we'll do Facebook Live classes. Okay, well, that can't work because now we can't engage with them. So
Right.
how we got to figure out the Zoom thing. Okay, so then let's get Zoom. Okay, boy, oh boy, this is really tough teaching in patterns. Okay, how are we going to adjust and make it different for them? How are we going to make sure the experience is the same, so that way they feel like they're at the dojang at home, and yeah, it's a lot of learning to it, but at the same time, I think it really challenged us to improve and be better than we were. So yeah,
Right on.
the challenge was.
What was your
Oh,
attrition rate like? I mean, like, did you lose a lot of students right off the bat because they didn't want the transition, or?
in the beginning, yes. Again, talking back in March, I mean, none of us knew what was going on. Like,
Right.
we were losing people even before we were put online, just because um, there was already starting to get this notion. These people, parents were starting to get a little nervous about, this COVID going around, and well, we were already starting to see some decline. A lot of people were starting to pull out of classes before we got closed down. And of course, right at the beginning, we probably lost, I think it was close to 60% of our membership.
Wow.
Like we have 100, and at that time we had 130 students, and to just cut down like that, it was we still had a facility, we still had all of these things that we had to do, and so that's why we had just really had to make sure we could pivot to this virtual learning as quick as we could. So that was really, really important to us to make sure we could do that. But over that, we were able to maintain those people who were staying around and stayed online, and then we ended up just kind of um, switching our target for a little bit. We were still online after a month. We were still online after 6 weeks, and it was kind of like, I think we're still going to be online for a little bit more. We were, I think, 3 or 3.5 months until we were able to open, something like that. I don't think it was until June or July till we
Okay.
got to open our doors up again. This is last year. So we started, you know, getting some advertising out to get people, like, hey, we're doing online classes. So we ended up enrolling new people, even while we were still online. So, and then we started rebuilding and regrowing, and well, now we're here. We're actually at a larger number than before COVID. So that's
You know,
really turned around.
yeah, there's a lot of schools out there reporting that they have uh, more students now than they did before.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we did. Like we're now sitting. We have over 200 members.
Holy cow!
Versus prior COVID, like I said, we were sitting around that 120, and we were really, that was a good size for us. Like I said, we were. It was we nothing wrong with that. That's a
Yeah,
good sized school, and but like I said, we just, yeah, we made some switches. We really made sure that we were able to deliver as best we could, um, the martial arts experience and the martial arts training to them at home, because really the, the kids had nothing else to do. I mean, everybody was at home. I mean, some of them were at school. Like everybody was doing their learning from home, um, even shopping. Like we were adjusting everything. So we made sure we were able to deliver as best we could that same experience that they were getting in the school at home. So yeah, we really tried to make sure we could do that,
right on.
because we saw lots of people, not to cut anybody down, but we saw lots of people just kind of give up or wait and say, oh well, this will be over in a little bit, so I'm not going to learn this part here. Well, you know we're taught as instructor or as students of martial arts to not give up.
Right.
I know every martial art has their own creed or oath or tenet. And, you know, Taekwondo, we have our tenets, and, you know, we have our student instructor relationship. And one of the instructor's side is to, you'll teach anywhere at any time. And suddenly when COVID hit, that was like a magical, well, I'll teach anywhere at any time unless it's on Zoom. And so that I always actually kind of found interesting was there was a lot of instructors who said, I'm not teaching online. I'm not going to do it. That's not how you learn Taekwondo. That's not how you do martial arts. Well, not the world we're in. So too bad.
Yeah. Well,
let's make sure, let's be there for our students, because they've been there for us for the years. Now let's make sure we're there for them. So
absolutely. You know, it's funny because for me, I've kind of always been up and down. Never had a store, never had a brick and mortar. That's my goal eventually. I'd say in the next couple of years, I'll have a brick and mortar somehow. But it's one of those where, you know, I've gone through, you know, basically I've always taught out of my garage, but it's one of those where it's like, it's gone from just being a garage with random mats down to, you know, everything's sheetrocked, insulated. I have really nice mats. When you walk in the door, it doesn't look like a garage. It is clearly a dojo. It has that feel. And me being a kind of a tech guy is like I had some type of e-learning setup on my website, and I already, you know, had a setup to teach virtually. But at the point that COVID hit, I only had like 3 private students. And so, and you know, 2020 was going to be my year. You know, it's like, I'm going to put it all in. This is, you know, I'm going to make that decision. I'm going to do this. And, you know, and it's like, you know, I'm going to, you know, reopen kind of to the public and re-advertise and just kind of build myself up, and then COVID. So, it was kind of, and even though I had all the tools, you know, even Brandon Beliso and I had talked, I was like, I had all these tools, but I was not using any of them. And so for me, I decided at the beginning of this year that regardless of what state we were in, I was just going to start teaching again. And this is how I was going to do it. And so one of the arts that I do is Modular Knife by Bram Frank. And and of course, it's all very tactile. There's no forms. There's drills, there's partner drills, but it's like, how do you do that in a virtual setting? And so even when I was promoting, I had, because I also took the time, since I wasn't teaching, I did take the time to kind of redo my entire curriculum into a rotating curriculum. So I took Brandon's class, and that changed everything. That's fabulous. But one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to take the modular and put it into a rotating curriculum. So I kind of advertised, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it virtually. I've got it all laid out on paper. Now I need people to test it. So, but I got a lot of people who were like, okay, great, but you can't teach that virtually. It's like, how would I learn knife techniques virtually? And it's like, trust me, I think I figured it out. And so, you know, I got a handful of people, and we went through the whole 4-month process. And of course, I learned a ton, but I think it was turning these partner drills into, you know, solo forms. So essentially, I created a kata out of all the different drills, and we just kind of went through the motions. And there's one guy, well, actually there's specifically one guy in Connecticut and one guy in Florida. Like, they move like I mean, even when they miss classes, I was recording them and then putting them on the website so they could watch them, you know, for anybody who missed, so they could keep up. But they look like they've been training with a human, you know? And so it's like, yeah, this, you know, and so when you get those people, it's like, oh, well, that can't be taught. It's like, no, there is a way. There is a way to do it.
Yeah.
It just takes some thinking outside the box and a lot of visualization.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you just got to be creative, and you got to be willing to relearn some stuff. Again, as instructors, a lot of times we get kind of stuck in our ways and in place, and then we've got to remember that we're still learning too. So and sometimes we forget that. So when you have to relearn this whole thing and figure out a different way to teach, a lot of people get frustrated. Well, don't bother with it. But you just figure out ways to get creative with it. I mean, same thing. We were doing sparring drills virtually, sparring drills, like, so we would get creative with it, whether it was like us punching at the camera. Okay, I want you to dodge to the right side. And when you dodge to the right side, you're going to throw a punch at my head. Okay, now remember, I'm still standing here, so I need you to make sure you punch on this angle over here. And it just takes a little bit more time to do that one drill, but being able to kind of walk through, give the visual. Okay, I'm going to punch over here. Okay, ready, move. And when you had we would have our TV set up and all the different, tiles of Zoom cameras. Okay, little Johnny. Okay, move. Yeah, move. No, the other way. That's right. Okay, get over here, and you kind of just walk them through it. And yeah, it just takes a little bit more time, but you got to get really creative with it. So we found that, okay, when we were online doing those kind of drills, when we would bring them back, we would kind of, when we would be back in person, we would do a lot of the same drills, so they could start to see like, oh, okay, this is what we were doing online, and now we're going to do it again. Okay, so now partner one, partner two, partner one, punch at your partner, dodge to the right, punch at their head, so then they were able to start seeing where they were, what they were working on online now with an opponent. So yeah, we just had to get really creative with our stuff. But yeah, we did lots of sparring stuff, and we just figured out ways to just do it. And yeah, that's purely partner stuff. Like we have our patterns as well, and those are all solo. But how do you practice? Yeah, self-defense. Even like, okay, self-defense, wrist grab your own wrist, rotate, grab the other one, rotate, grab this one. So they're at least learning some sort of movement. You just had to just think outside the box. How are you going to do these exercises alone? So just keeping them going, though, at least, so that muscle memory stays active. So when everybody does return, they're not starting from scratch. So yeah.
Right. So you said that you're, for the most part, you're back open now in your area.
On Thursday, June 1st, I think it was June 1st, we got to open up, but we had to do outdoor classes. So we still have our facility. We had to go and teach at the park, which is totally fine. It's summer here now, so we've had some pretty good weather. And then on Thursday, June 10th, we were able to open up for in-person classes. So we were actually able to run out of our facility. So we've done 2 nights in our facility, and so far that's gone really well. The kids are excited to be back. All the students are just happy to be back in the dojing, back on the mats, back training together again. So that's really nice. And then I think they're estimating end of June here will be like everything's just like all rules are back to normal.
Yeah. So
we've been a little strict here.
Well,
so
I'm right on the edge of Oregon. So Washington, Oregon, we're kind of, I can't remember what the date is. I think it's either the 15th or the 19th, or maybe even the 21st. I can't remember, but one of those 3 dates. And I know that I think they're different. One date is for Washington, one date's for Oregon, but it's one of those where it's like once you either get to that date or or 70% vaccination rate, then it's all back open. So
Right.
like in Washington, there's several locations if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore.
Mm.
And they're not they're like, I go to Costco. You know what Costco is, right? One of our big box stores. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, we've got those here.
Okay. Well, I didn't. I don't know. I don't know.
It's not all
but-
igloos and snowshoes.
I know that, but there are some businesses that are
Right. Yeah, I
strictly
know.
U.S.
I know.
compared to
Yep.
So in Washington, if you don't have a mask on, you just walk up, they offer you a mask, and you're like, no, I'm good, I'm vaccinated, and they're like, oh, okay, no problem. But in Oregon, they're requiring businesses for you to show proof that you're vaccinated.
Oh wow.
Which I know for here it's a huge big thing, because we have our HIPAA, which is health privacy laws, but the way that the HIPAA works is it's primarily like when you look at just HIPAA, it's primarily just on healthcare systems and doctors, and they're not able to share your stuff. But technically, a private business could, if you're an employee and a customer says, hey, are all of your employees vaccinated? Technically, the business could say, oh yes, John and Sue and whatever, they're all vaccinated, or they're not vaccinated, and they're not breaking any law. But then there's other state laws, like in Washington, there are other state laws that kind of figure in. So I don't know, when it comes to private health information, they're pretty strict. But it's funny that in one state, in my state, they're just like, yeah, okay, we trust you. And then and you could have a lot of people that'd be like, well, I identify as a vaccinated American, and then just skirt the law. But then of course in Oregon now, they're asking for proof. But which I joke, it's kind of like that, papers please. So I don't know, how is it been there? I mean, are there still mask laws, or how is that?
Yeah, there still is right now. I believe once we're at that 70% as well, I believe all of that gets dropped. But yeah, and I think that we're pretty much by the end of June here, we should be close to that. I think last I looked, we're at like 68%. So it's pretty close, which will be really good. A lot of people are looking forward to, going back to normal. I mean, again, right now, because we're able to be open, people are happy to be back training. Like they've missed being back in person and training with their classmates, their students, and everybody else. So I know everybody's itching to be back and everything. So yeah, I mean, we're right around the corner. We're like I said, the light now is kind of there. You can kind of see it, and you can see now, okay, people are more comfortable even coming in person too. So
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, it's even my wife. I mean, like for me, I don't have, I've never really been fearful when it comes to that stuff, but I have become accustomed to, going to pick up an order and eating at home and not going out, even though restaurants have been open here and there. I never really got the whole thing of you have to wear your mask in, but you can sit down at the table and not wear a mask. But that's a whole nother story. But
that's right. Yeah.
We just went out. I mean, we ate outside, but we just went out for the first time the other night. My daughter had a band concert for high school, and we just, went to the local burger place and sat outside, ordered and sat outside. And so that was actually the first time in like over a year we'd actually eaten out in a way. So
wow.
Now I went to Indiana. What was it? In April, And for me, it was like, it was a breath of fresh air, but I didn't wear a mask from the time that I stepped out of the airport to the time I stepped back into the airport, because where I was, there was no mask mandate. You know, they weren't asking. You could pretty much go anywhere. Nobody looked at you funny, you know. So yeah, it was strange. It was
Right.
refreshing, but just like, okay, well, I guess this is how it's going to be now. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how you know, we make all these adjustments and how quickly we kind of get used to it, right? So
oh, absolutely.
yeah.
So now you teach with your wife.
Yep.
Is it just you and your wife at the school, or do you have a staff? I mean,
Yep.
okay. How
Yeah,
many?
so we've got a couple instructors that teach with us. We're just actually in the middle right now of even bringing on like kind of an office manager, administrative um, person in, because yeah, we have a, well, we're running at a pretty full capacity right now, and so yeah, we've got a few people now with us, so which is really nice. So we've got a small team that we're developing, and being able to just provide more. So, and working on that development of training our instructors now as well. So because yeah, for a while it was just me. You know, my wife, we had she was working full time, and I was running the school full time, and so I did 99% of the teaching, and then we kind of helped run things together, and then just over the years we've been able to kind of slowly pull her in more, and now we both are at the school full time, so which is awesome, you
Yeah,
know.
I don't
So
know if I
but
could
yeah,
work
no,
with
so
my
we've
wife.
got, what's that?
I said I don't know if I could work with my wife like that. There was
Oh,
one
it
time
has moments.
I was
Moments. But
I was long ago. I had my own computer company, and I ran it from the house. And in fact, that was the one area where one time that I wasn't doing any martial arts, which kind of came to a point in my life where it's like I'm missing something, and I realized it was I didn't have the arts in my life, and coming back into it, it was just a huge thing. But my wife was working from home, and I was running my computer, web design company from home, and it was I don't know. We saw each other too much.
well, you know what? There's always, of course, there's learning to be had, but ultimately, I mean, it's great. We get to you know really work on the school together now, right? So
Yeah,
we do meetings twice a week where we get to, okay, what are we working on right now, like what's happening for the summer, okay, who's doing what, and then we kind of just from there we decide who's doing what, and then we just both kind of go do those things, and then we meet back and go, okay, these things done, who's got this, what's happening here, okay, cool, and then we go. So it works really well. I mean, we've been able to do that now for the last few months, and it's been just more recently this month in June where she stepped fully away. So she's actually a human resources professional. So she's recently just stepped fully out of that, and she's at the school full time with me. So but yeah, like I said, it's great because we get to do this stuff together. We've got two boys too, and our one son, he's 7, so he's involved in Taekwondo. He trains in the classes, and yeah, we get to enjoy all of that together as a family. So we really like that. We
that's
love
that's
that.
that's very cool. I actually met my wife in Taekwondo. And
Really?
yeah, no, I actually met her. It's funny because one of the jokes was is that even though I had met her, I didn't notice her until later. But yeah, it was pretty funny. I was taking Taekwondo at the local college, and she was in the class, and that's just how we kind of met. And of course, I've moved on through the arts and stayed consistent, except for that, little break I had when I was doing my web stuff. But it was one of those where she just, I don't know, at one point she just stopped. She's still involved because, I host instructors every now and then. And so, of course, she still has to be involved in that process because, I give up the house. Like we're doing my knife instructor, Bram Frank. He's going to be out here in July for his birthday. And we just hosted here at the house, the big backyard. It's outside, got a big fence. So nobody looks in and looks at us weird, but it's, but her active training stopped. I don't know, however long we've been together for like 27 years. So it'd be like maybe 20, 25-ish years that she hasn't been training. But how did you meet your wife through the arts or?
Yep. Yeah. So we met 10 years ago, I think it's something like that now. So I'm from Prince George, BC, and she's actually from Lethbridge. She was living in a place called Edmonton in Alberta. We met there just through Taekwondo, through tournaments. We actually originally met the first time we were doing some filming, some instructional videos for Taekwondo. So this one instructor had set up some filming sessions. We were both part of it. So that's originally how we met. We didn't get together at that point. It wasn't for a couple more years, but she always likes to joke we met on set. So it just makes it sound really cool. So that's originally where we got together, or sorry, not got together, but that's where we met.
Yeah.
And it was, a few years later, I ended up moving to Edmonton from Prince George, and then we got together at that point. And then we had our first son. He's 7 now, so we got together and had him pretty early. So, and then we moved down to Lethbridge. Like I said, that's been 6 years now. So we've been here in Lethbridge for 6 years. So together, we've only been together for 8 years. So not as long as obviously you guys. Wow, 25 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we met through Taekwondo. Obviously, she started as a kid too, same as me. Like she started at 7. I started at 5, but we've been very, we've been in Taekwondo, both of us, same style, everything together, and then we just kind of met years later.
Okay. Hey, I have TJ's asking a question. Says, does your wife have issues with classroom titles? My wife will not train/teach with me because she refuses to call me sir. She even has issues with calling me sensei because it's her natural habit to call me honey, which isn't exactly professional. That's
Does mine does not, and I don't have, and vice versa too. So she's a 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo. So she's an instructor as well. She teaches at the school as well. And both of us, this goes both ways. Neither of us have an issue, in Taekwondo, we traditionally call the instructors or black belts by their last name, right? So most of the students and even the instructors, it's either Mr. D or Mr. Dumoulin, and her last name is Stratachuk. So same thing. I don't call her Nicole or Honey or Sweetie on the floor. It's always Miss S, and it's kind of goes both ways. We're okay with that. So she doesn't have an issue using titles. She'll tell students, "Oh, go see Mr. D," or if she needs to get the class to say yes sir, she uses those stuff without a problem. So yeah, sorry TJ. Yeah, I don't know, mine doesn't have a problem with it, but again, either do I. So we work well together that way.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, TJ. Maybe that might take some couples counseling.
Yeah, it might. You might have to, but we both know that there's, there's that relationship, right? There is what we have at home,
Yeah.
and there is what we have at the school, and we work well together in both parts, right? So yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. I like that you guys are working together and that you have that good partner relationship, especially in the,
Mhm.
the workplace. So, oh,
Hi, sensei.
yeah, honey sensei. That's pretty
That
good.
might work. Maybe that one will work. Uh,
Right on.
then you get the kids calling you that too, and yeah. Yeah, no, so um yeah, no, you were saying you talked to you kind of switched up your style into kind of a rotating curriculum. Hey, like
Yes.
that's what you had mentioned, and that's what we did too. That was a big switch that we made over the pandemic. So, um, readjusting our style and fitting it into a rotating curriculum. That was something that we did. I've actually been looking at that for years. It wasn't until we had time to stop and really reevaluate how we deliver everything, and we've actually recently done that as well. Last September is when we started implementing that sort of structure in our school. So,
Did you
and
go?
it works beautifully.
Did you go through Brandon's class?
I
The
did, yes, actually a couple. And I have been studying him for a long time, just trying to figure that whole model out. So, and yeah, lots of tweaking, lots of we were still kind of working out some kinks and what's working and what's not, where we should put certain things. But that is definitely yeah, that's been a massive transition for us in being able to deliver not only in person, but when we were online, being able to teach that way has been that's made it way better. And now that we're back in person, we notice it so much better. We're able to deliver the same quality that we're used to delivering, but to other more people, and we're able to actually teach it better. We notice it really works well um, for us. So
yeah, I
that's been something.
it was
Yeah.
one of those, like, for me, I hadn't I believed in the process. I knew that it was
Hmm.
possible. I just didn't know where to start, because my
Yeah.
style is extensively kata based, um, and then we get our self defense out of the kata. So there is no extra one step sparring or little forms outside. All of our self defense comes from the kata, and then
Mm.
and so it's like, okay, well, how it's like, how do I break that down? And and it wasn't really until Brandon's class that I was like, it's like, okay, this is how it's going to work. And then so when he announced the class, I was on board right away, because it was one of those where it's like, okay, this is the key to unlock this mystery that I've had.
Hmm.
But then the paperwork that he had in it, it still wasn't clicking for me. All the information, it's like, okay, well, I got it. But when it came to actually the paperwork that he had in the class, there was something blocking me. And when he started talking about, starting at black belt and working backwards,
Yep.
that, oh, Harvey's asking who Brandon is. Brandon Beliso. He's Professor Beliso. He's has two schools in San Francisco. I'll send you his info or a link, Harvey, or I'll post something here in a second. So, so anyway, he has. I actually I created my own paperwork and kind of put it out. I work security as my 40-hour gig, and so I've got this new post where I really don't see anybody. It's an awesome retirement spot. So I have this big counter that I put all the everything out, and looking at it from the grand scheme, from the macro, I was able to kind of shrink it down, and then
Hmm.
that's kind of where it was like, okay, this is how it's going to work. And
That's right. Yeah.
it was, I've been trying to promote like regular Kempo classes. Hasn't been very successful, but I do have I have an older student who's kind of starting from scratch, who's a Marine in Okinawa, and I have another student who he had taken like a 4-year break, and he's in South Carolina. So it was one of those where, you know, they were both like, yeah, we'll be your guinea pigs. And so I've kind of been going through and using that. And just like with the modular stuff, I'm learning. So it's like, okay, you know, I broke up one of our forms into 4 parts, but it's a very simplistic form. And, you know, the guy in Sacramento or South Carolina, he had never learned the form before. Very, very alien to him. But he was able to pick it up in basically just a couple of classes. So it's like, okay, well, how did I break this up over, you know, essentially 6 weeks instead of whatever? So learning from that, it's like, okay, well, there's much more that I could teach. So it's like getting the actual form down. I can do that in you know, in just a couple of Class A classes, and then my self-defense, instead of sparring, self-defense is the B class.
Right.
And so so going back and forth, but then it's like, okay, well, all these other class A's where we were going to work on the form or learn new moves, it's like, no, there's a lot of hip action in this one form. So it's like, okay, well, then we'll get the foundation of the movement down in these classes so we can learn the form from beginning to end. And then we'll go back over and learn the hip action into the form and improve. And so by the end of the, you know, the session of the six stripes, he's got it down. And so I was like, okay, so it's been learning for me where it's like, okay, I had stuff on paper, but then I'm, you know, rewriting, yeah. So it works a little bit better. So.
And that's really key. Like you know, I've always been, like for a couple of years now, I've really been kind of obsessed with this whole idea of how this rotating curriculum works, right? And because that was something that always I held a lot of value to, was delivering what we do the best possible way, right? So we can teach it, we can still maintain a high quality and be able to do what we do best, right? And so the idea of this rotating curriculum, because I mean, much like most martial arts, right, the Taekwondo belt system is very linear. You know, you got your white, your yellow stripe, your yellow, your green stripe, your green, and each belt to their, you know, in each stripe there's a new pattern to learn. There's, you know, maybe a self-defense or step sparring and all of these things that we got to learn, right? But it's always difficult. It's always been proven difficult when you've got larger, you know, 2-3 different belt levels or ranks in the class, and each one's doing different patterns. Each one's doing different step sparrings. And so, you know, I was always able to do that. I mean, I've been doing it for so long. I kind of figured out a way, but you know, we almost found like, well, the quality, you know, we're teaching 3 different groups in one class. So we either needed multiple instructors to make sure that we could teach all of these different people and keep that stuff up. So yeah, we really worked hard to understand this rotation and how to do the rotating curriculum, especially during COVID. We just looked at that. Once it clicked, then it was just executing it, right? It was writing out the year plan for each level and then applying it, just actually trying it. So that's where we're in right now. Is, you know, we've started doing that in September, and we're now in June, right? So we haven't quite hit a full year of doing it, but so far how we've got it going, it is going really well, and we're seeing actually more improvement because we've taken a step back and gone, well, how come these movements that we do in this particular pattern never look right? You know, it's not the student's fault. It's certainly not the student's fault. It's how we're teaching it. And so we took that moment to really say, no, what are we going to do and how are we going to improve how we deliver it? So then it looks better. The students look better and perform it better and understand it better, can apply the movements better. So yeah, that's what we really worked hard on doing that. And yeah, once we broke things down, you know, we went with the same model, kind of a 6-stripe model in between testings, and did it that way. You know, each stripe might be, you know, this piece of the pattern or these fundamentals or, you know, these sets, and then being able to then plug it in and put the pattern together. And yeah, it works amazing, right? It's just, but again, it's getting the especially when you're kind of a traditionalist, and whether you're a traditional Kempo or Taekwondo or whatever, we've got this like, it's like the belt levels, they're very linear, and so is our like vision. Like we're very narrow minded. And I find that a lot, especially with Taekwondo, is like, no, this is the way it is. This belt has to learn this. This has to learn that. That you can't do that in this level. And like, there's always this like, you know, but you can't change it. It's perfect. Yes and no. You know, like most martial arts, they weren't set up for schools of, you know, 200 people or more, you know, and a lot of them especially weren't designed for like, you know, the age groups and everything, you know, like they were structured differently. So being able to design the curriculum, not to, you know, to improve upon it, that was something that we really wanted to do. And I think we're doing that well now. I think we've kind of got that figured out a little bit, but it's taking some time, right? We're making, you know, a few hiccups along the way and going, oof, we shouldn't have that in this level or this cycle. We should actually put it at a lower level, or that was too easy. We should put it, you know, down here. We should put this one, you know, so we're still tweaking a few things, but you know, again, it's something that we really care about, right? We really want to make sure that the quality is there with all of our students, right? And again, a lot of times instructors get caught up and go, well, that person's not, they can't learn it. Like, you know, it's always someone else. It's always them. It's never like, well, how are we teaching? How are we teaching? How come they're not learning the correct crossing that we want them to teach? How come they're not learning the correct stance? Oh, their stances are awful. It's just them. Well, no, it's probably us. It's probably us as the instructors, and we really gotta take some accountability and a little bit of responsibility on that. And you know, so yeah, like I said, designing that curriculum so we could improve how we teach, and make it duplicatable for other instructors, right? I spend 4 or 5 hours a night on the floor every night, 5 days a week. Yeah, I've got a lot of experience. Not everybody who teaches for us spends 5 hours a night teaching. So they don't have the same level of experience coming in, right? So how can you take somebody who's going to teach 2 nights a week and make them teach to the same quality that you want them to teach at, right? And so this allows us to do that, right? There's a very clear path for the student and the instructors teaching. They're able to know, this is what we need to teach them. Okay, great. How can we teach that this way? You know, it allows us to really make sure we again, that clear path for the instructors and the students, how we're going to get there and what we're going to do to get there. So,
and you know, by breaking up the curriculum, and even breaking up the curriculum into breaking up the forms, for me it was like, okay, well, you know, I used to teach a form in a class, like, and then of course, you know, you're just packing all of this information into the student's head, and then by the time you come back to the next class, you're just like, it's like, well, I can remember the first step. And so, you know, when you get into, you know, I'm only going to teach, you know, 6 to 8 moves over a 2-week period. they get so
Mm-hmm.
much, yeah, their skills improve. You can get them to step correctly, move correctly. There is, it
Yep.
gives you that time to be able to articulate. It's like, this is how this part is done. It's like, okay, well then the next week it's like, okay, you've got this down. And the next section, now we're going to work on this.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. And then again, that development of designing it, yeah, it's tough. It was a struggle to do it. It was a struggle to wrap my head around it. But once I got it, and then once we were able to write it all out, then we just had to apply it. And that's what we're seeing now, is we're seeing the application part. And yeah, we're still learning. Don't get me wrong. There's stuff I'm finding that I put in a certain spot and I'm like, boy, that was a little too much. We
Mhm.
need to maybe move that. How can we, or yeah, it's fine there, but how can we actually teach it better so when we get to it, it'll make sense more. So we're still learning it, and we're still trying to tweak and make some kinks. But you talk to a lot of really good instructors who run the same model. They revisit every year. Like they still like, even though once they got it down, they've been doing it for 10 years. They still revisit and go, okay, well, how did that work? That didn't work. How come? Oh, okay, like maybe we should put it here. And they always revisit. And again, that's our job as instructors, is to make sure that we can deliver this stuff, and you know to a good quality, to a good standard, right? And
Right.
we just recently did a belt testing in April. So this would be, April would have been our second cycle um, of running this. So we started in September, December was a test, January, April. So in that April time, we tested. That was a big test. We tested almost. I don't know. It was almost 200 students. We tested,
Okay.
and it was. We were. You got to remember too. We were. I think January we were still online. We didn't really get returned back into the school until sometime in February. Uh, Tons of students were still online because they either had to quarantine because they were close contacts. So we still weren't even running fully in person. So we do this April test, and we're testing that large of a group, and it was easily the best performing exam we've done as a school in I can't even tell you how long. Like with when we would test more in the traditional fashion, the way we used to do it, right, the old school way. This group of people, and we even had a smaller school last year, but to have tested that many people and to just see the performance from it, I could see it wasn't just like, we could see the value of how we were teaching this and
Mhm.
what we were doing, because again, the outcome, we were now able to look and go, okay, this is working, this worked. Okay, so yeah, anyway, so that again, that's something that I think any instructor can benefit from, is really looking at their curriculum and really designing it for the students to learn, right? And sometimes being open to different ideas in how you deliver it, right? A lot of times we get stuck in how we learned something 20 years ago
Yeah.
by somebody who's not even around anymore, and we're like, well, that's the way it's done. Yeah,
What
and let's try it this
that
way.
that
So
whole linear thought process. It makes me think of this. I was watching. I don't know if it was posted on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, but there was some kata was posted, and there were all these comments of like, and the form wasn't complicated. There were maybe a couple moves that was like, okay, maybe I wouldn't teach this to like, somebody in their first year. But they were all like, oh well, this is like, high brown, this is a black belt kata. And so I was like, honest question, not criticizing at all. What makes this a high level kata? Is it the
because they put it there?
Yeah, is it the application? Because we teach a form as our basic form, just just a down strike or down block and punch, and that's all it has. But it's got some pretty deadly moves. So it doesn't matter. Like from my perspective, it doesn't matter. High level kata, low kata. It's the applications that you teach from it. Are those applicable to who you're teaching? But it's like, so I was like, what makes this? And I would they were just ripping on me. Like, how would you ever think that? It's like, no, I'm an outsider. This is not a form I do. So, they would, but nobody would answer the question. And it's like, well, teaching this form, breaking it down into, 8 steps at a time, it really wouldn't be that hard to learn at all.
That's right. Yeah. And Taekwondo, we've got our same too. Like we've got, we've got our patterns. Each belt, stripe, and belt has a form in it, right? And for the most part, the Taekwondo patterns are pretty good at layering, right? So like, you learn Chun-Ji, and Chun-Ji has movements that'll get you into Dangun, and Dangun's got, Dosan, and they layer well, okay? But there's a few, especially in that mid-level, that it's a blue belt pattern. So you're like kind of halfway through, you're just over halfway. And the pattern to me scales like, you're kind of going along, and then it just goes.
Yeah.
But then the next one isn't that actually difficult, in terms of techniques and if things to learn. And then all of a sudden it kind of climbs a little bit again. And then like it doesn't, there's some parts. So you kind of go, well, but that one, if anything, is way harder than this one, but it's over here because they said so,
Yeah.
So again, it's just being willing to open up, right? And understand how we teach, again, not just because of, well, that's just the way it was, right? Like, you do it because that's the way it's done. It's tradition.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with tradition. Don't get me wrong. Like we teach all the traditional stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm for tradition, but again, we get frustrated when the students don't pick something up. Well, it's because it was imperfectly made, right? Like in changes get made. Look at how we learned from education. We don't learn in school the same way we did 100 years ago, right? Like,
yeah,
everything's changed too. And I feel like martial arts, a lot of times we're like stubborn. We don't want to change. So we hold on until we either close shop or, hang on strong. Right. So, but yeah, it was a big shift for us, and especially in our style. Like I said, yeah, I love the ITF patterns too. They're beautifully executed. They look awesome. So yeah. So, but absolutely, that's a big shift, and especially in our style and in our group, our organization, that's something that we kind of get the look on us, like, well, why are you doing that? Well, because it works better. So we're shaking it up a little bit, but I think for better.
Yeah.
Like I said, we see improvement. So
for me, I like to say I was brought up untraditionally in the martial arts, because most of my, even though I started in Taekwondo, it wasn't until, when I got into Ruku Kempo, there was the group that I started in. It was like, okay, we're getting into the, we're studying this new style, and and it was really a bunch of Taekwondoists that were getting together that were kind of converting over. But we learned like 13 different kata in like 8 weeks, and we were all kind of assigned a different form to learn, and then we would teach it to the group. But it was one of those where we would kind of teach each other, learn from each other. It was a lot of it was more seminar format, not doing really line drills or anything like that. So it wasn't what I was used to in Taekwondo, because in Taekwondo, you just, there's a lot of line drills, there's a lot of this, or at least from my experience back then, you just going up and down, just step and punch, step and punch, step and punch, stepping back, doing the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is that for me, my forms, there were some forms that I learned originally that I just don't like doing them. And so I can't remember who it was. Somebody had said, and this is a higher level rank guy that had said that when you start, if you were to start teaching forms to somebody, you just always kind of start with what you were first learned, what you were first taught.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he taught, that's why he taught, there's a kata that we do called Naihanchi. Shotokan, it's called Teki. But it's this cross-stepping form. It's a linear side by side. And so he teaches that as one of the first forms you learn. But in some respects, it looks more complicated. So when it came to putting forms together, it's just like, well, I don't like the Pinans, so I don't even teach Pinan kata anymore as a group. But it's like I enjoy doing this kata, I enjoy the applications, so that's what I teach. And so it was just a matter of kind of putting those together. When it comes to putting forms at certain levels, for me, it was just like, okay, well, I want to start basic, so just a down block and punch is good for the basics, and then I'll get into Naihanchi, and then we'll get into the more complicated ones as people move on. But at the same time, no matter how complicated they are, if you break them down 8 moves at a time, they're not that complicated.
Right. That's right.
Harvey says, can you discuss the wave movements on ITF Taekwondo? It's something I have found value in over the years in Kempo.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's always something that, people either ask about or have a hard time understanding is we call it sine wave in Taekwondo. So it's how we move from movement A to B, right? So if I'm going to step forward from a low block, stepping forward to a punch, in karate, or even going back a long time ago, Taekwondo, it was very, very flat, right? So your body stayed at one level and you moved straight into the movement. And with the ITF, and I hope I'm going to answer his question here, but the sine wave is the springing of our knee, and what it is, a lot of people end up over exaggerating it and going, dipping their body too low and too high and coming down, and that's where it kind of gets ridiculed a lot. But the sine wave is just sort of a way to relax the body, generate a little bit of mass as we're dropping our body down into the technique. So as we move from point A to point B, for example, like if we're just going to do a walking stance, or in some martial arts, I think you guys might use the front stance or something, just a walking one foot in front of the other. So I'm going to step forward. I'm going to spring the knee that's supported on the floor, and I'm going to spring down, come up, and then as I'm going to execute the punch, my body's dropping down into the stance versus trying to stay flat into the movement. I know I'm kind of looking odd as I'm trying to do that into the camera there. It doesn't really explain that well, very good visually. But the springing of our body allows our body to relax so we can use our hip, and then the downward motion into the technique, that's generating that mass. So as we're coming into the technique, we're creating more mass with our body, and then ultimately more power. Again, this is for our forms, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, you don't need to do that for patterns or anything. But it's funny because you'll put a lot of people, when they do board breaking, for example, let's just say we're going to do a punch. A lot of people naturally do sine wave. The sine wave, again, if they're going to do a punch going in, they won't just stand still and punch the board. They'll wind their body back, again, rising up and then coming down. So there's sort of these natural movements that we do in a lot of our techniques. And I guess ITF patterns, we just try to apply a similar theory into the movements itself. So I hope that helps, Harvey. That is almost like a whole, like that can be like that. A lot of people get into discussions about sine wave in Taekwondo's patterns. So
let's see, TJ, very good explanation. My karate grandmaster's tried his best to beat the sine wave out of me, but sometimes old habits die hard. So
yeah, I can see that. Yeah. But once you kind of understand it, again, you train it. It does it like it kind of like when you're doing, again, a traditional martial art where there's patterns and there's forms. You kind of, once you start learning that movement, and you kind of start understanding it and applying it, not just through a discussion like this, like you really train it and you really apply it. It starts to kind of make sense. You understand why. And again, you start doing something like a board break, for example, and you realize if you watch somebody do a board break, a lot of times there's going to be a natural 1, 2, like a lift of the body and a drop down. And again, that's all the sine wave is. It's just in the form instead. So, but yeah.
So there's a
WGF does hate it.
one of so, and I see this as part of one of the Kempo groups that I mean, there's a bunch of different Roku Kempo groups. They're all kind of scattered and in between, but there's one Dragon Society. One of their, I can't remember, they call them players to the game, and one of them is the waveform, and it's basically just this hit, either a hip action moving through and out the arm, or even like as you were explaining, you know, as an example of a board break, the person kind of coming back and then moving through to strike. I kind of see those as similar. And so when Harvey, and I hope I'm getting this, you know, because Harvey and I kind of do the same, roughly the same style. So, so finding that wave, that it's just another way, like the way that, you know, Dragon Society puts it, it's a player to the game. So as you are doing an application, you add all of these players. That's their thought process behind it. But it's just one of those, like, okay, well, if I'm doing an application, you know, say I'm grappling, I can put a wave into the application, and I'm basically using that kinetic energy running through me and into them. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other little players that they can put into it, but it's basically saying, okay, well, here's the mechanics of the application, but then here's a wave that I can add to make it more effective. Here's a pressure point that I can add to make it more effective. Here's a stance I can add to make it more effective. You know, so it's just so when Harvey mentions that, that's kind of where my mind goes, because yeah, you know, I just call it a waveform, you know, but it's just how the, you know, just the body kind of moving in this, you know, in a wave type format to move that energy into somebody else to make the technique more effective. So
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting at how all of our arts, no matter what their origin, they are all connected in some shape or form. Yeah, Harvey says
Oh
good.
yeah.
Good
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Definitely. Oh, thanks, Harvey.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't get to see Harvey very much, but even though he just lives 3 hours from me, and I point up as he is north of me. At some point, things will open up enough, and then he and I will be able to get together. We've been planning on doing a double impact seminar out here. So
I think that's a lot of people's plans. There's a lot of like just waiting for things to open up, and then oh, we're getting over here. We're gonna get together. Lots of get-togethers to be had.
yeah. Well, I think I'll see him in July. He's supposed to come down for Bram's camp, so will be a chance to play with knives, which is good.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny because when we started, here's another question. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the evolution of traditional Korean self-defense Taekwondo as compared to the newer modernized sport Taekwondo?
Both have their place, right? And I guess that's the cool thing about martial art or Taekwondo or whatever, is there is stuff for everybody. I'm a competitor as well. Like I mean, I've been doing traditional ITF Taekwondo for 29 years or something like that, right? So like, I mean, I've been doing that, and I'm a competitor too. So I see value in both. I recently stopped competing 2019. So just like, just before COVID and everything, I kind of was like, okay, I'm done competing. I'm going to focus on just our school, the students who maybe want to compete. But I think there's a place for both. I mean, I don't knock either one. I mean, I like both aspects. Like I said, I spent a lot of years competing, and I I don't regret doing them. I loved competing. I like the thrill of it. I like learning. I like challenging myself. I like putting myself out there. So I like that part, and I think competition teaches us a lot. Um, I would say more regularly than, let's say, self defense. I'm not getting into self defense situations, you know, once a week, right? Whereas like we were competing a lot more. So I found competition really taught me a lot about how to, how to challenge myself and really push myself. How far can I go? You know, what level can I compete at? Who can I compete against? And you really get a humbling experience through competition. So, but at the same time, I love learning real self defense um, with martial arts as well. So, um, you know, my thoughts on it, both are great. Like I said, there's something for each one. I mean, even in the sports side, there, like I said, I'm a heavy competitor, um, and like I said, I like competition. I like I said, I think it's good for people to do. I I do. I think people need to compete. Um, Again, it's just really gives people a chance to work hard and set goals and again just push themselves through it. So, but
Right on.
yeah.
There was a question, but I lost it. Um, it was, so I'm reading this book. Well, I'm listening to this book. It's called Grit. It's by, what's her name? Let's see. It came out in 2016. It is by Angela Duckworth. It's of course that. Oh, okay, there we go. So
Okay.
it's called Grit, and she talks about, and I might do a journey episode on this, just because I think that it got me thinking. So there's the saying that, and I can't remember the statistics right off the top, and I don't know how accurate they are, but essentially it says, out of 10,000 people that start in the martial arts, only, say 1,000, are doing it a year later, and then 100 are doing it a couple years later, and then, one of those gets to black belt. I don't know. I've heard the term. I've heard the things before. There's 100 different memes out there on it, but they got me thinking, because this book is about grit and who sticks with, it's like, who's going to stick it out on different things. And one of her things, one of her first experiments or studies was on West Point. So you have West Point, who, it's this military college. You have to start, you have to start at a sophomore in high school trying to get into it. You need a recommendation from a congressman or senator to even get your name on the list. You have to have great grades, all this kind of stuff. So, but within the first couple months, they kind of put you through almost like a boot camp style, to kind of get you ready to be a student at West Point. And their dropout rate is incredibly high. But they take like the best of the best. These people are varsity, competitors in sports, and they have great grades, but a huge number of them drop out. And so she did this. She did this study where she had all of them fill out this grit scale, and she came back, I think, towards the end of those little boot camp thing. They call it the Beast. And so she did this at within the first week of the Beast, and then came back at the end, and everybody who scored low on the grit scale had actually not followed through. They had dropped out. And so, you spend all these years trying to get into this great school, you're accepted, and then you drop out. You can't hack it. And so that got me thinking about martial arts and those statistics of, you have all of these people starting, but out of, say, 10,000 people, only one becomes a black belt. Not sure how accurate that is, but I
don't think the numbers would add up, but
yeah, I mean, you've been in the martial arts long enough. You've seen it. Like, you get these people,
of course, absolutely.
There's only that select few who make it to first degree, and then even out of those, there are a select few that make it to second, third, fourth. I look at it as having a screw loose. For me, I used to be a bouncer doing bar security, and really the only people that stick with it after the first night, you've got to have a screw loose to enjoy that job. So I definitely fall into that scale of having a screw loose. You spend 30 years in the martial arts and you still want more, and you don't mind getting beat up on, because that's how you learn. But it's just, I thought about, what would we do to, like, almost like, I almost thought of, how ethical would it be? Like, you get that person who comes in, they're really excited about taking martial arts. It's like, okay, well, I want you to take this grit scale. And if they score low, you don't accept them into the school. I don't know. It was, thoughts, they have this, these shower thoughts. This was me driving thoughts,
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think martial arts is the one thing I find is there's the one thing I've enjoyed about it is seeing the different kinds of people that come in. And um, martial arts is there for everyone, and we all have our own reasons for being in martial arts, or the reason why we're still doing it after 30 years.
Yeah.
Whether it's having a screw loose, or we're just utterly obsessed with it. Like for me, like I teach now. Like I've been teaching now for a while, but I love to do that. Like I love doing that. I love seeing people come in. I love seeing them learn, and being that place where they can come in and learn something new. And we've got people who have been doing Taekwondo, and they're older now. They're in their 50s, and yeah, they're not doing the same flips and kicks and beat 'em up nights that they may have used to, but they're into a different part now. Like we've got some, for example, with us that they're really interested in I was talking about competition earlier. We got asked about that. They're interested in, well, I can't do a lot of that stuff anymore, but I want to referee. I want to judge at high caliber world championships, and I want to be ringside, but I can't be in the ring. So like Taekwondo and I mean martial art. I say Taekwondo, but I think I mean this as martial arts. We all have our own reasons for doing it, and I think that's something that's really cool about it, is the uniqueness to it. That you might do it for some reason. You might be doing it because, well, you said you're a security guard, so the reason for you doing it might be like pure raw self-defense. You are doing this so when you go to work, you have been training for that night, and that's cool. We have some who come in twice a week, and they just they're there for a workout, stress relief, to learn, and that's cool too. They've got a 9 to 5. They're not working security, but so that's what they're there for. So we teach a lot of kids. A lot of times when they start, it's because mom and dad put them in, and it's an activity to do a couple nights a week, and then they grow to love it, right? So yeah, we all have different reasons for it, and different reasons why we stay. And I think that's always something that I've found really cool, is knowing that about people, is that, we all have different reasons why we're doing it, why we keep doing it. And yeah, like I said, it could be from anything. So could be just the people, the community. That's a big one, right? Like people just love going because that's their community. Like that's where they go because their friends are there. That's the home to them. So yeah.
Yeah, right on.
But
yeah, I've gotten a lot out of the book, but it's just one of those thoughts, and I agree. We all stick to it for different reasons,
Yep.
And like I had mentioned before, I was in the arts, and I was studying, and then I don't know why, I don't know the decision I made to stop, but I had stopped, and it was about a year and a half. I was, I had my own computer web design, and it just I wasn't making the time to go, and it things just weren't going well for me, and I was just like, well, I don't know why. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to start going to class again. And so, being a Kempo guy, I was introduced to modern arnis, which is the stick fighting. And that was, so I went out to Jacksonville in 2000, which I actually met. I met Harvey out there. I don't remember meeting Harvey, but there is a picture to prove it. And he says I can't show it to anybody. So, but not that it's incriminating, but it's not a flattering picture. So, but it's one of those that I love you, Harvey. But it's one of those that that when I started training again, I knew that I was missing that was just a part of my life, that, things got better after that. And it's like, it's like that was part of my life that I had, that piece that was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just got to, be there in some shape or form, and I love teaching, I have a class in the morning before, in a live class at that. It's amazing, live classes again, but I have this regular live class in the morning before the podcast. And, it's a modular class. We were doing some stuff, and it got me thinking of other things that are related within modular that are that Bram doesn't teach. And I was like, okay, well, what if, instead of checking this, and what if you grab, and if my response within modular, how would that work? And it all kind of fit together, but it's not something that Bram had taught before, but it was something. So it's like figuring out, other stuff, like, letting that art grow. That's something, not only do I enjoy teaching it, so I can pass on that knowledge and help other people become safe, because my why is I want people to be safe. And that's why I teach.
Right.
It's why I'm in security. It's being, keeping a safe environment for people, but it's also growing and learning yourself while you're playing. So I enjoy that whole process. So
yeah, right on.
Plus, I'd probably just be single and living down in the van by a river, because if it wasn't for the martial arts, I wouldn't have met my wife. So
there you go. Yeah, exactly. See?
Yeah.
No, I remember I got asked one time, this is like years ago, and my wife and I were together at this time, and we were at a seminar together, and we were kind of sitting, we were in a circle at that point, and I was kind of sitting on one side of the circle, and my wife was sitting on the other. And like I said, we were together at that point. It was just where we were lined up, when we sat down, we just weren't side by side. And the instructor, or whoever was running the seminar at the time, was kind of going around, and we were kind of talking just like we were about, like, why do people do Taekwondo? And he started asking some people, and some people are like, I like to teach, I like to protect myself, and all this stuff. And he came around to me. It was, sir, why do you like to teach? And I, without even missing a beat, I just pointed to my wife and I said, the chicks. And it was, I didn't mean it by it. It was just so funny. And he was like, her face, she just, like, her eyes, she's like, what? So
that's pretty funny.
Anyway, but yeah. So, and again, yeah. So, like, I mean, I met my wife because of Taekwondo, right? So anyway, it's just kind of a joke about it between us, but
that's awesome.
And now to everybody else.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was going to say this earlier, but then TJ asked a question. So, when I told you it's going to be about an hour and a half, and you're like, how can I be that interesting? Dude, it's been over an hour and a half. This has been a great chat.
See that now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna on the note of the wives, I'm going to pull this to a close. Everyone who is looks like just TJ and Harvey, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for interacting and asking questions. You've made this chat awesome. TJ says, I'm sorry. I don't know. Is that in the reference to the wives? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Josh, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Before this, we had never met, never chatted. So I think
right. Yeah.
This has been a good chat. And then for anyone who has hung out this long, if you're watching this, if you're watching this as pre-recorded, or however, previously recorded, and you've gotten this far and you still have not liked, shared, subscribed, any of those really cool social media things, please do so now. And no, TJ, sorry for asking so many questions. No. Questions are good. Questions
That's
are
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so anyway, Josh, thank you. Listeners, thank you. And we'll see you on the next